Hello, this is Dread from Epic Builds. In today's video topic, we're going to be going over my first day in patch 8.3. So, when the patch landed, I was severely overwhelmed with all the choices of builds that I could do, as there has been a lot of changes and there's a lot of different builds that you can be playing this patch. And I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna pick a random node and just do it. So today I decided to go with the node inside Warpath that allows you to spawn forged weapons. Yes, these are the same forged weapons that come from your forged strike tree. So your forged strike tree does affect your forged minions, meaning that your Warpath can literally be used to summon minions. Now, why this is so strong is because it allows you to run stuff like Wings of Argentis, it allows you to run stuff like Armor Wall Channeling, it allows you to stay mobile. There's a lot of reasons why you like Warpath. It also gives you just a health on hit as well if you actually add that as well. There's a lot of reasons why this version is a lot better than the old version, where all you do is just run around in vengeance. Also, as well, one beautiful thing is that node that summons forged weapons inside of Warpath. It does not require you to hit the enemy, meaning that you do not have to be near enemies to kill them, which means in arena that should actually be pretty good because you can literally like just kind of hover around somewhere else and not be near enemies. Obviously, you do want to be somewhat near enemies because you do would lose the 15% DR from the base Sentinel class, as that is only nearby enemies. Now, there are a lot of other things going on in this build. This build is using the Manifest Armor base that is provided by Rook, a friend of mine. So pretty much what we're doing is we're focusing heavily on health regen on our gear to support our Manifest Armor to make sure he never dies, because he literally becomes immortal once you get some good health regen gear. But that also means that we have to run a bunch of hybrid idols on our idol slots, because otherwise we would not have enough HP to survive one shots and stuff. And that has actually been buffed because a lot of the places that you can get HP inside of Sentinel has been changed and buffed, meaning that that 1400 life you see there, that's without almost any life on my rare pieces of gear. That's absolutely insane because I'm only level 71, meaning this build will cruise way over 3000 life in endgame, meaning that the DR from your Warpath, from your Wings of Argentis, the DR from Hammer and Anvil, the 25% DR for free, because that's why the only reason you'd play a Minion Sentinel build is for the free 25% DR. You also get all the armor DR. You're going to be very, very tanky. And all of this combines together to make into a very nice archetype. Now, there are a few issues with the build. The first issue is, now this node says after 5 seconds of channeling Warpath, you summon a forged weapon. Now, after this node, right, it has to be continuous channeling, by the way, but after this node, there's 125% efficacy of this other node, meaning that you would spawn them around like every 2 seconds, kind of like that, right? Like, it kind of works. Now, the way it works is you have to spend the first 5 seconds channeling, and then your first manifest weapon spawns, right? I mean, your first forged weapon. Then, next 2 seconds, the next one spawns, the next two spawns. So, every single time you start, you have to wait 5 seconds of a delay to summon a forged weapon. And that makes a few things awkward. Because, for instance, if you stop channeling and start again, it resets the timer, meaning you have to spend that 5 seconds again, then it's back to the normal every 2 seconds. And what that means is we are heavily disincentivized from leaving Warpath. So if you just want to hold right click, don't click any buttons, literally just right click through an entire mono, let the minions do the job for you. This is literally the perfect build for you. Now, there is one time we leave Warpath, and that is to proc Voidcleave. Voidcleave is a new skill added in this patch. It requires a two-handed axe or sword. It is actually the main reason we're using something like a Udachi instead of a polearm. And the reason why that is because there is a gigantic buff in the upper left of the Voidcleave tree that gives us 75 melee added flat to minion attacks for 4 seconds after you hit an enemy. Now, you could actually add another node after that gives it that node 150% increased effect, raising it all the way to like 200 flat, but you have to physically hit the minions with Voidcleave as well, which is kind of hard and annoying when you have like 12 minions on the screen. So I just opted for the 75 flat, and I found that's pretty good. Now, in this patch as well, Voidcleave can apply 3 stacks of critical vulnerability. Critical vulnerability, pretty much what it does, every stack of it gives you an additional 5% base crit against the enemy. Meaning if you have 5% base crit to start out with and you apply 1 stack of critical vulnerability on an enemy, it is an extra 5% base crit on top of that, which would mean you have 10%. This is insanely strong because it allows a lot of builds that normally could not run base crit on their gear to actually function. Like for instance, this one. So on our weapon, we actually run increased crit and melee attack speed. The reason why that is because that 15% base crit that we get from hitting an enemy with Voidcleave is enough to get us almost all the way up to 50% crit with just simply 1 prefix. Especially on single target mainly. On trash, you normally don't need to crit, and on rares, you just hit an enemy with Voidcleave and they like instantly die. It's insane because you have so much damage inside of this Voidcleave. You also get 5 stacks of Fire Shred as well, but that's not as important because as a Forge Guard, and if you're setting up with the Axe Thrower node and Hammer and Anvil setup, you actually get free Fire and Physical Shred for free. Especially against single targets. So you don't really have to worry about that. And oh lord, let me tell you, the single target on this build is absolutely insane. When I leveled this build and like I wiped my account, started fresh because I always start fresh for patches, I got to Lagan in the campaign and it was literally a 5-second phase. Literally 5 seconds. It took me 5 seconds to take him from full health to half health with this build at the time. And I don't know about you, that's pretty good. Now, like I said, this build lacks a little bit on clear, mainly because it's a minion build that doesn't have any built-in AoE, although there is a node inside Forge Strike that allows you to turn your swords into axes, and the axes have a little bit more AoE, not much to be honest, not enough for it to actually contribute too much, but you actually don't have that many things to take inside Forge Strike itself, so having a little bit of extra AoE sometimes helps. And with the solidity of having Manifest Armor always up as well, means that you will never be out of minions. One issue is Manifest Weapons are a tad squishy, so you do need something to fall back on, i.e. Manifest Weapon, Manifest Armor, which is pretty nice. Yeah, with that being said, let's get into the game, shall we? Here we are in game with the build. Just so you know, this is a work in progress, and I have been streaming this. So if you go down to the description and follow me at twitch.tv/epochbuilds_YouTube, you can actually see the progress of the build in live action. Now, I will be working over this for the next few days, and this is not a finished concept yet, but I plan on build guide soon. I just need to finish and, iron out the kinks. Now, I am going to show you how the build functions. I'm not going to go too in depth this time, but I'm just simply going to show you how the build works. Now, mainly, we are utilizing the node here called Forge Master Stance. While spinning, you summon Forge weapons every 5 seconds as if you hit an enemy with Forge Strike. Pretty much all that means is every 5 seconds, you summoned a Forge minion. Why that's strong is because this Forge minion scales off of your weapon stats, which is actually pretty good. Now, We have 5 points in moving forge. It says while spinning, you summon forged weapons more frequently. Now, like I said, I have no idea why this is, but it makes it so like it's very inconsistent on how it actually works. I'm not completely sure how it exactly works, but all I know is you get extra minions, so that's all that matters. Now, other stuff is we take like Reckless Spin for the -6 mana cost and the 2 points in Unchained. This means that we actually don't need to run any other mana cost negatives on any other pieces of gear, meaning we don't have to worry about anything. Especially we don't even have to run the -3 mana cost relic. We take 1 point travel, 2 point travel, 3 point travel, just so that we can get to Dark Nexus, because we are auto casting our Ring of Shields and we're casting our Voidcleave every so often, so we need a way to sustain. And since we're forced into a two-handed sword thanks to Voidcleave, it's actually very beneficial that we are running a two-hander. And then, of course, later on, we'll grab a little bit more movement speed. I do have a +1 chest. I plan on removing this +1 chest when we move to a Wings of Argentus, but that will allow me to drop the node here and Quicksilver Wind and probably do fine on movement speed after that fact. Now, obviously, Forge Strike, we literally take everything involving Forged minions. They have been changed this patch. Instead of having infinite Forged minions, you're limited to 12, but they're a lot stronger. Now, we take 4 points into Forge by Fire for the extra 40 flat. Really good. 4 points into Well-Forged Weapons, so they last for 16 seconds instead of 10. You also get an extra 4, meaning you go, like, you have a base of 6. You would get 4 from here and 2 from the passive tree, so you have 12 in total. Then, of course, we grab Forge Master Axe, so we have a 20% chance of creating an axe. I'll show you. This is an axe. Pretty much what this does is it just has a bigger AoE. That's it. All the other ones are just little swords. Now, we take 4 points into Lightforge because this attack speed bonus applies to my forged weapons as well, which is it's really good because getting attack speed is really hard on these builds. And then 5 points into Heavy Strike, which is just more damage for our forged weapons as well. This combined with the buffs to the base stats of forged weapons and the ability to utilize your weapon to scale them, it actually makes 12 forged weapons better than 100 from like last patch, because you can actually sustain these and keep them alive and summon them, unlike the old version where you had to spam Forge Strike. I literally do not have to use Forge Strike at all. It's actually off my bar, and I use Lunge instead because I literally do not need Forge Strike, which is really, really good. Now we have our stereotypical Manifest Armor setup. I don't really have to go over this. If you really want to play Manifest Armor, there will be a link in the description to the old Manifest Armor build, which will work just as fine. It's just simply, I believe that this is more of an evolution of it. And of course, we have the stereotypical Ring of Shields setup so that we can heal ourselves, get the tankiness. Since we're scaling minion health, these Manifest Shields, they actually become very, very tanky and allow us to deal with a lot of projectiles. And they also heal us as well, because since we are not dealing damage, meaning our Manifest weapons are dealing damage and all that, that means that we have to get our HP back with other sources, which means we need to scale a bunch of health regen, we need to scale heals, a lot of stuff like that. Now, a lot of our gear doesn't matter right now. I plan on focus. There is a build planner in the description, like I said, but I plan on working on this more and more, and hopefully we'll come to a conclusion of what kind of gear we should be running. But the most important thing I found was running a Odachi with melee crit multi that applies to all your forged minions and your manifest weapon. And it also, you want the attack speed, because the more attack speed you have, the faster your clear will be. Because if your forged minions get to the point where they can one-shot trash, you want more attack speed so that they one-shot trash faster, so that they go to the next enemy faster, which will increase your increase your clear speed. And since we are running the stuff from Voidcleave, where we get the 75 fire damage with our minions, right? We actually don't need to run flat on our weapon, right? Because we have plenty of flat with everything on the tree and everything like that. Now, Voidcleave has, like I said, this interesting part of it where it allows you to apply crit vulnerability stacks, giving us like an extra 15% base crit. So we start with 5, we get 15% from Riftmaker against enemies, which means we have a 20% base crit. Now, that is why we're running increased crit instead of base crit, because if we have 100 increased crit, we actually go to 40% crit instead of like going to like 32 with base crit instead of this. So you want the increased crit instead, right? Because remember, your minions scale off the stats on your weapon. Now, this can go up even higher to like 150%, or we can get all the way to 50% crit with our minions, which is really good. Then, of course, we run minion melee damage because that will apply to all of our minions. And then chances, shred, armor, and hit is very strong because a lot of our damage is physical, and it still works really well for our fire damage as well. And since we're hitting so many times with so many weapons, we actually hit the armor cap if we have T5 chances, shred, armor, and hit. And the armor cap is like 60 to 70%, something like that, 80%. So we're dealing 80% more damage thanks to this. Now, I am running a Doom Ring right now to give us 20% increased damage taken from the enemy, so we can deal 20% more damage with our weapons, because what else are we going to be doing while we're warpathing around, right? I'm unsure about this. I might want to run a movement speed ring instead with some stats on it, minion damage. I'm not completely sure about Siphon of Anguish, but I believe it could be a good option. And that's pretty much it for like the gear. I'm not going to go over the rest of it because you can always look in the planner below, and I plan on doing a much more in-depth guide once I'm actually finished with the build. With that being said, thank you all for watching, and hopefully I'll see you next time when I post another update on this build. Bye!